The announcement of the All-NBA teams is always a fucking shit show every single season, with fans debating who should and who shouldn't be on these teams. The new CBA starting next season will see the all NBA lineups go positionless, also with a minimum 65 game requirement to be deemed eligible. Today, I'm going to be predicting the 2023 All-NBA teams under the current format, which is 2 guards, 2 forwards, and a center. Now, I know I can't please everyone watching this, and regardless of who I select, there's going to be snubs and someone's going to be upset, so it is what it is. Keep in mind that a lot of my selections can easily be swapped out for someone who's either in the snubs list, or you can probably switch out someone from, say, the 3rd team to the 2nd team, because that's just how great the talent league-wide is. And so, if you guys do enjoy the video, I would really appreciate it if you can hit that like and subscribe button to help my channel grow. Let me know in the comments section what you guys think. So without further ado, my All-NBA first team: Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, Luka Doncic, Jason Tatum, Giannis Antetokounmpo, and Joel Embiid. First of all, SGA deserves a lot of love for leading this very young OKC team as far as they have. Nobody thought they'd be sniffing a playoff spot even when they had Chet Holmgren, let alone once he went down. And so you can certainly make the argument for a lot of any of the guards that I have in the other teams or even in the snubs list. I don't think there's necessarily a wrong answer, but I think Shai belongs on the first team given how much OKC has exceeded expectations, along with how great he's been individually as a player this season. Next up at guard, I've got Luka Doncic. The Mavericks have been probably the most disappointing team in the NBA this season, and Luka should definitely shoulder some of that blame because the guy doesn't even try to play defense. With that being said though, maybe if his egghead of a coach knew how to utilize this already poorly constructed roster, they'd do better. Now let's not forget that Luka was right in the MVP race for a big part of the season, and the Mavs wouldn't be where they are, which, yes, I know it's outside of the play-in, without Luka Doncic. So, he's had an amazing season himself, and I do think he deserves All-NBA first-team honors. Just because, the team has been kind of shit as of late, we shouldn't discredit what he's done for the vast majority of the season. Next up at the 2 forward spots, Jason Tatum and Giannis Antetokounmpo. These two are pretty straightforward, and there shouldn't be too much explaining required. They're the best players leading the top 2 teams in the league whilst having amazing individual seasons. Jason Tatum obviously led the Celtics to a scorching hot start, 21-5 to start the season, and was in that MVP race or leading the MVP race early on in the season, whilst Giannis right now is very much in the midst of the MVP race, and a lot of people are debating whether or not he deserves it over Embiid. I think it's very close between him and Embiid, so pretty much straightforward locks. At center, Embiid versus Jokic will always be a hot topic of debate. I personally have Joel Embiid as the All-NBA first-team center, and I do have him as the MVP, although I think Giannis is actually closing in on that gap big time. At this stage, I think it's honestly a toss-up in terms of who should be the MVP. I still have Embiid, but look, I wouldn't be mad if Giannis won it, so let me know what you guys think in the comments below on that topic. And so, yeah, in terms of Embiid versus Jokic, I think Embiid's had the better overall season, and so hence I would put him there instead of Jokic. All-NBA second team, I've got Steph Curry, Donovan Mitchell, Jaylen Brown, Kevin Durant, and Nikola Jokic. Steph Curry, firstly, he's just doing Steph Curry things, man. A lot of people, and probably a lot of you guys in the comments section, will argue that he's deserving of All-NBA first-team honors, and to be honest, he has a pretty fucking strong case for it, so for me, it's a real toss-up between himself and Shai. If you think he deserves first-team honors, I'm not going to be mad at you. I can definitely see why. For me personally, I think I give the nod to Shai just because his team has exceeded expectations by a lot, whilst the Warriors have been quite disappointing, considering they're the defending champions. Yes, I know they've had guys in and out of the lineup all season, and it's out of his control, but to me, team expectations and team play are a factor as well, because you're not going to put, a guy that's on a 7 and 59 team like the Charlotte Hornets back in the day in the All-NBA first team, right? So for me, it does matter. That's why I do give it to Shai ever so slightly. Next up, Donovan Mitchell. He's having the most efficient scoring season of his career, setting career highs in points per game, field goal percentage, 3-pointers made per game, free throw percentage, and true shooting percentage in his first season as a Cavs, leading them to a 50-win season and first playoff appearance without LeBron since 1998. This one's pretty straightforward for me, but again, there's a lot of other guys which are very deserving as well. At forward, first up, Jaylen Brown. He's having the best season of his career as well, and he's shown that he's more than capable of carrying the offensive load when Jason Tatum sits. The Celtics have the number 2 offense and number 2 defense en route to the second best record in the league, and are one of the few teams in the league which have won enough to deserve 2 All-NBA guys. Next up, at the other forward spot, KD, Kevin Durant. He's undefeated as a Sun, a perfect 8-0, And overall, he's 21-1 in his last 22 games. And when he was on the Nets this season, he was 26-13. So pretty much whenever KD does play, his teams are winning games and doing so in an excellent fashion. The only argument against this placement is the fact that KD has only played in 47 games this season. So obviously with the new CBA coming in, setting in that 65 game limit, that would help. For me, I think KD has proven enough in those 47 games to warrant an All-NBA spot, despite the fact that he's missed a large chunk of playing time too. But again, it's really up for debate. You can put him, you might snub him, you might put him in the third team. I wouldn't be too mad. At center, Nikola Jokic. This one's as pretty much as straightforward as an addition as they come, averaging close to a triple-double with ridiculous on-off splits, the best record in the West, and sitting in the heart of the MVP race. Pretty straightforward. And if you put anyone else in here besides Jokic, or Embiid, I should say, then I don't know what to tell you. And finally, my All-NBA third team, I've got Ja Morant, Damian Lillard, LeBron James, Julius Randle, and Domantas Sabonis. First up, Ja Morant's led the Grizzlies to the second seed in the Western Conference without a bona fide second star. And yes, I know Desmond Bane is a great player and extremely underrated, but in my eyes, depending on how you define it, I don't think he's quite a star just yet. I think he's very close. Yes, Ja has had his off-court issues, but this is an award based off of on-court play. And when Ja has played, the Grizzlies as a whole, as well as Ja himself individually, have been amazing. The Grizzlies are 11-10 without Ja, so because of all that, I do think he's deserving of all NBA honors, although I personally wouldn't put him above, Steph, Luka, Doncic, or Donovan Mitchell. Next up, Damian Lillard. I think what the Blazers are doing to Lillard, wasting his prime years, is fucking criminal. Without Dame, they wouldn't even be sniffing the playoffs for as long as they did. And it's pretty hard to believe that they were actually first in the Western Conference, very early on in the season. As of late, and overall for the season, the Blazers are 6-18 without Dame. And he is the difference between this Blazers team being a fringe playoff team and, challenging the 7-59 Bobcats for being the worst team in the league. And so this one's pretty straightforward for me as well. And he also did drop 71 points this season, of course. Next up, LeBron James. Man, with LeBron, it feels like no All-NBA team is complete without him. And although, I think he's on a pretty obvious slight decline, he's still pretty fucking incredible. And the Lakers are one of the most slept-on teams going into the playoffs, especially with their new and improved team. To turn around the ship from starting 2-10 to where they are now, like, yes, they're only in the play-in tournament, but, keep in mind, this is a very different Laker team. They look bloody amazing with their new look lineup, and I think they're going to cause a lot of teams troubles in the playoffs. So, LeBron's obviously the captain of that ship, and so I do think he deserves all NBA honors. Next up, Julius Randle. He's had the best season of his career between himself and Jalen Brunson. The Knicks do deserve someone in the all NBA teams, and although I actually personally believe that Brunson deserves it more, it's a lot harder to find a guard spot given how stacked the guards are. So I'm going with Julius Randle here. NBA basketball is more fun when the Knicks are good, and the Knicks right now, they're looking pretty fucking good. And at center, I've got Domantas Sabonis, who's been the absolute key to the Kings' juggernaut offense this season, and a huge reason why the Kings are third in the Western Conference. So I do have him slightly edging out Anthony Davis for third team center honors. The Kings season has just been spectacular from beginning to end, and man, nobody, and I mean nobody, would have thought that they'd be a playoff team this season, let alone a top 3 seed. I don't even think Kings fans would have believed it themselves. So I think Sabonis is very deserving of an All-NBA spot. Now onto the juicy stuff, the biggest snubs. First and foremost, the guard positions are fucking stacked, and because of that, there's going to be a lot of deserving players who will unfortunately get snubbed. It's just the nature of it. And so when the new CBA does kick in and all NBA teams become positionless, that'll make things a lot better. First and foremost, I have Devin Booker, who's had an amazing season. But when I look at the Suns being fourth in the West, I just don't think they deserve 2 All-NBA players. Now, you can make a very strong argument that Booker and KD shouldn't both be judged as Suns players, given that KD has only played 8 games in the Suns uniform. So it's really the Suns having 1.5 players, if you want to put it that way. But if you look at the guards that I put above him, I don't think you can put him over SGA, Doncic, Curry, or Mitchell. Maybe Morant and Lillard. I think there's a very strong argument there. And if you have him there, then fair play. I can definitely see why. I'm not going to argue against it because there's not much to argue against. It's really a coin toss at this stage. So Devin Booker. Next up, I've got Jalen Brunson, who, like I mentioned before, I do think he deserves an All-NBA spot more than his teammate Julius Randle. But because of how stacked the guard spots are, It's a lot easier finding an opening at the forward spots for Randall, and I do think the Knicks deserve at least one All-NBA candidate. Next up, Drew Holiday. He's had arguably the best season of his career and has excelled in his role as the second option to Giannis, especially when Middleton was out. And I do not look forward to playing him again in the playoffs, because as a Celtics fan, I'm telling you right now, Drew Holiday is more of a Celtic killer, at least as of late, than Middleton is. Next up, James Harden. He's had an excellent season playing Robin to Embiid's Batman, leading the league in assists per game, and right up there in terms of the best second options in the league. Next up, De'Aaron Fox, who deserves a ton of credit for co-piloting this Kings team alongside Sabonis to the top of the West, but like I mentioned, it's just hard to find a spot for him. And finally, Anthony Edwards. Look, the Timberwolves have been a fucking train wreck this season, in between acquiring Gobert, the Cat's injury, to trading away D'Angelo Russell for a 35-year-old Mike Conley, just so that you can make use of that Gobert trade better. But amidst all of the noise, the Wolves are still in the play-in tournament and have had a decent season, largely thanks to Anthony Edwards, so I do think he deserves a bit of credit here. Just keep in mind these are in no particular order as well. Now, as for the forward spots, there's a strong argument for any of these following guys to make any of the All-NBA teams over LeBron, for example, but I do think LeBron gets the nod with his historic season becoming the top scorer in the history of the game. So I've got Kawhi Leonard, Jimmy Butler, Pascal Siakam, who I think he actually had a great start to the season, but he did cool down for quite a while, and he's sitting in the middle of the pack, and he's not the household name that LeBron, KD, or even Jaylen Brown is, so that I think hurts his case a bit more and puts him a bit further down. And then lastly, for the forwards, shout out Lauri Markkanen. Utah got off to an insane 9-3 start and was sitting on top of the West in the early days of the season. And although I think Lauri has been amazing, I just don't think you can really put him above any of the other guys that I have in the top 3 teams. And so he's most definitely going to get most improved player, or at least he deserves it. So shout out to him. And lastly, for center, I really think there's only one major snub, at least on top of my head, and that's Anthony Davis. Now, if Anthony Davis was still playing as a power forward, I'd easily put him in one of the teams, and I'd even argue that he deserves All-NBA honors over LeBron. But unfortunately, this season, he's strictly been playing as a center, and, he's been very underrated in my opinion. He's looked like an MVP candidate when he's healthy, looking like bubble Anthony Davis. But just for this season specifically, I have to show a lot of love to Domantas Sabonis for leading the Kings to that 3rd seed in the West, and you just can't make a case for Davis over Jokic or Embiid. So that's my 3 All-NBA teams and my biggest snubs. Let me know what you guys think in the comments section below. Keep it civil. Don't keep it civil. I don't care. Let's have a discussion about it. Thank you very much for watching the video. Make sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you guys in the next one.